And here I thought it would never happen to me. Posted by Reddit user RedbeardGR. Me and my wayward wife, together for 22 years, married 20. 3 kids, 2 young adults, 1 7-year-old. 5 years ago, the wayward wife had a late life epiphany. Sex was good and enjoyable. We went from 1 to 2 times a month to daily, and sometimes if time and responsibilities allowed, twice in the same day. The activities included seductive nudes, sent to my phone or email and cutesy stuff, hearts and smileys reminiscent of our earlier days in the relationship before kids. Somewhere in this time, December to January 2018, talks about spicing up the bedroom by bringing another person in the mix. First red flag, it was a guy friend from our cohort that the wayward wife suggested. Noped it hard, with the simple reason of not my cup of tea to be naked, in the same bed with another guy and my spouse. It got dropped then, but articles about poly and open relationships were being dropped on my inbox or links on the phone. I would read them and vary from non-committal to not interested. The week before Thanksgiving 2018, we're out on a date and the talk about including a third comes up. I ask if this hypothetical third has a name. It's a close friend with whom we spend a lot of time together etc., and with whom the wayward wife has spoken about this idea with already. Pay for the drinks, get in the car and proceed to flip my lid. 1. I never agreed to this. 2. For any such conversation I should have been present and not told after it was decided. 3. Fuck no, literally. The holidays sucked for all, but it was one of the best weight loss programs for all adults in the house. Around February 2019 we get our shit together to talk it through. She's repentant and remorseful, admits poor judgment, and understands why I'm not okay about the deceit, as well as the whole idea. She got it. Sex life took a hit. We managed to find a new pace. At least once a week, but the spark and lust were subdued. Earlier this year, apparent that I had a difficult relationship passed unexpectedly. I was there for a planned 4 days, stayed for 45 and a funeral. My baggage started resurfacing, especially some of the treatments that I experienced of being the safe one, the second choice. As I'm starting to deal with this crap milkshake of the soul, wayward wife starts to be withdrawn, always on electronics, limited conversation, and only about the basics. Fuck. I'm at a place to deal with my loss, and now this. Okay. I get on her machine after midnight, when the house is all quiet, and there's nothing in recent email, or on Facebook, and on phone messages. There's activity but nothing that points to coded, or otherwise hidden messages. I check the time frames of 2017 to 2018. Bingo. I find sent emails to the friend from her, with the same spicy pictures I was getting at the same time. Facebook Messenger for the same period is full of good mornings, smiley faces, hearts and flirting between them, video chats from 5 to 15 minutes. Wayward wife was starting a business, and friend would stop by for coffee or lunch daily as he could. At the time, he was there to help and advise. Flip of lid, part 2, the idiot awakens. Got the 20k volts coursing through me all night. Could not sleep, sit. Just paced. Around 6 a.m., wayward wife wakes and asks what's wrong. I open the laptop lid and show her the highlighted emails with her naked pics to the friend's email. No inbox, just sent files. I asked how would she react if she found out I had pictures of a naked woman on my machine, and that they were of a time period covering at least 10 months prior to what I said was a silly mistake. I pointed out that she did lie. She did have at least an emotional affair with the now verified AP, and it was deliberate. Trust was lost, and any statement from her at this point would be suspect to its truth. The first apologies of the wayward wife ended in the trash can as she started to vomit. I asked why she did not tell me of this 4 years ago. We would have dealt with this already. I told her I'm taking the day to think about it and sharing because it can happen to anyone. None of us are special. And here I thought it would never happen to me. Update 1. Today is day of firsts. The outpouring of support and trauma shared is staggering. I find myself glad and sorry that I'm not alone in my experiences. Thank you to all for the advice, comments and suggestions from readings to step-by-step playthroughs. I have replied to individuals, but it's worth updating all and clarifying some points before the update. She did have a miscarriage. That was a bloody affair that we rushed to the ER for, with her soaked in her own blood. It was verified as such by the trauma staff and OBGYN at the hospital. It was early first trimester. No way to tell who the father was. This was early 2018. Got snipped shortly after. Sex life was still on the red-hot stage of things. I have heard from several of you that the DNA test route is a good idea. It's yet another truth that has been challenged today. The affair partner is single, has been divorced for at least as long as we were married. Racially we're European stock, he's mostly African American and Native American. He's very well spoken, charming and educated. Wayward wife was engaged in minority community outreach and education for years, as was AP. Wayward wife nascent business was with an actual storefront. Sure, there were spaces that two adults could be intimate in. If there's a will, there's a way. AP runs his own consultancy and makes his own hours. Flexible schedule and has small business experience, offered to help with the startup, and was an advisor. Again, legitimate reasons to be there plus time. Business was started in the fall of 2015, storefront opened in winter of 2016. Closed shop spring of 2019. Good idea, bad execution. In retrospect, wayward wife had her mind and focus elsewhere. And yes, the more I reread this text, the more of a calamity this man was for us. After spending the day in disbelief, anger and errand voltage running through me, I came home. My insides are playing death metal, while outwardly I whistle easy listening tunes. Wayward wife is on the couch collapsed in on herself. She tried to get up to greet me, and just I pointed my hands at her. She sits. I grab the chair as far from the couch as I can. I inform her that I'm with one foot out the door. I will decide which direction I move in the relationship, based on what she does next. I tell her that since she's the mother of the kids, and out of respect for our time together, I will endeavor to keep nastiness on my part to a minimum. I remind her it's more fair than she deserves, and it's because of my self-respect, not her actions. Because of her fucked up upbringing, and the abandonment she experienced, I tell her not to be afraid of me disappearing. I tell her that if leave, she will be explicitly told. I also let her know that her presence in the house is at my discretion at this point. She has luggage, and can be told to leave, if at any point she disrespects me, or tries to lie. We discuss how to tell the kids. She wants to tell them it's the fight from 2018. I remind her how one of the then teens stopped speaking to her, and how she would be a pariah once again in the house. She starts crying, and I remind her she did this. I will talk to the kids with her there. She shook her head and cried. In return, to begin with, start with the no-contact letter to AP. Start the timeline on paper. Anything not true, we're done right there. The list of passwords to accounts, bank and plastic records. She gets the couch. I will let her know what next. Before I leave the room, I ask her who is she? She has become a stranger. Update 2. While going through wayward wife's phone, I found her text file with all her passwords to her accounts. Facebook, email accounts, Apple account, etc. So one more piece of intel. I have not been this angry, hurt, and confused in my adult life. I found all the things that I held as hard truths to be null. It's surreal having the person with whom you build a life with being asked to write a no-contact letter to her affair partner. It's even more surreal for the wayward wife to not argue when I've been asking her to do things. I asked her to also provide me with the affair timeline. Based on what she wrote, I would decide on my next steps. This all the morning after. I got myself to work and got sorted there with management about time off. My manager was understanding and gave me no problems. I started going through wayward wife's social media chats with AP and started seeing a pattern of flirting and daily conversations from January 18 to almost June 19. After that, there were more conversations between them, but mostly about a project that the two of them have been engaged for a while. There were 2 dates in the text lineup, on March 19 and one on April 19. The first was flirting between them, where AP was commenting about wayward wife lips and how he loves kissing her. She replied back with heart images and how she could not wait to see him in the morning. This was during the time that I was away on a trip with the 2 younger kids, visiting family. Screenshot number 1. The second exchange was wayward wife telling AP that she's sorry for hurting his feelings, but they need to keep it just to the project. Screenshot number 2. Send both screenshots to wayward wife via text and ask that she include those in the timeline. She starts explaining over text that they're not what they seem. I text her to just put the explanation in the timeline. Finish a couple tasks at work and head home. Wayward wife is sitting on the couch reading a book. I ask her how the timeline is coming along. She looks up and says she will work on it when she has time in the evening. She looked like she was crying, but is putting on a brave face. I'm irritated by this. I can't interpret her stance. It could be a, I don't want to do this, it's not important, or can't face it, or you're not the one in charge. This is not a game. Send a text to my friend, letting her know that I need an exit and shelter in place. Got confirmation and Ada. Grab my laptop, chargers, cables, etc. toiletries and bug out bag. Get the text from friend that says Ada is 2 minutes as I asked. Walk into the room with wayward wife and ask when the timeline will be done. She says she's going to work on it that evening. I let her know that she can concentrate better without me there and that I will be back home when the timeline is complete. And exit stage right. Chest left mouth agape as I walk out. I had a timeline in my email inbox in 40 minutes. On the very first of the versions, half of the timeline were apologies, excuses and reasons that made no sense. It took several days of edits and pointing the inconsistencies in the narrative. I wanted to drive home the time this was hidden, so I sent her a document that I asked her to fill out because of her jumping around in her story. It was really a list of all the months from September of 17 to June of 22. She started her timeline from September of 17 with the first set of spicy pics she sent me, and continued on from there, with focus after the blowout we had, when she announced her desire to open the marriage up and have an affair with the AP. She felt ashamed and sorry for her actions in November 18, and did not speak to AP until after the holidays. Sometime in January 18, while we were working towards reconciliation, she started speaking with him again, and he was supportive of her and understood where she stood. He asked her if she would like to drop out of their project, and she said no as it was very important to her as a project in general. During that time, they continued to spend time together, but would no longer tell me about it. When I had noticed this, I had asked AP why he was no longer around as much, not that I minded, and he said that he was spending more time with his son, who was now staying with him. In providing support for their soft breakup, that was our fight, and almost breakup in November 18 with wayward wife, they got closer, rekindled and continued with their emotional affair. The highlight was the texts of the screenshot I caught, where the two of them apparently shared an intimate kiss for the first time, sometime on Mar 19. After that they continued, having encounters when they could, that were mostly making out and some petting over the clothing. Wayward wife apparently was feeling guilt and shame, and broke it off with what was the aftermath in the conversation that got caught in April 19 in text. When I had a cohesive timeline, I sent it to the AP and asked him what he had to say for himself. He responded with how sorry he was and that he never should have engaged in that relationship and how sorry he was. He would tell me anything else, but I needed to find out what happened. Told him that wayward wife and I were talking about a sexual misconduct complaint against him. Truth was, we had never talked about it, but I knew the organization he worked for, and the project the two of them were involved in, and how damaging any such publicity would be. He sang like a canary, and gave the wayward wife up without a fight. Right under the bus. He admitted that she approached him, that he knew my reservations, but thought I could be open-minded. Wayward wife was to him a friend who truly understood the social issues of his life, and felt he could speak to her with an open heart because she understood him. Yeah, I know. I had the same reaction when I read that. He was sorry for the damage and was ashamed for lying and keeping it a secret. I called him a snake in the grass and how I was not there to give him absolution. From their timelines, I gathered that they were on and off and confused as to when it was just an emotional affair or just working on a project, and even the physical affair parts were strained, with him leading most of the time and her being active at first, then passive towards the end. He said he was sorry. I told him to keep the fuck away from us